We have breaking news at this hour. You remember Halyna Gutierrez, through her attorney Jason Bowles, was asking the judge in the case against Alec Baldwin and Halyna Gutierrez in New Mexico for a new trial, or at least to be let out on bond during the process of her appeal. She was sentenced to 18 months in prison for her role in the death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins on the movie set of Rust.
Right, we saw all of this play out last week with pretty intense arguments on both sides. The prosecution arguing that no, she doesn't deserve a new trial, that she had all of the evidence and her attorney was in possession of or had access to those live rounds that were discovered after her trial, sent to police. Troy Teske had them, and we now have the response from the judge, where the judge is denying that motion for a new trial for Halyna Gutierrez, and also the motion that she made through her attorneys for immediate release from detention pending her appeal. So she's still serving out that 18-month sentence behind bars.
And it's, you know, it's probably not surprising, given if you go back to the trial against Halyna Gutierrez and her sentencing. When she was sentenced by Judge Mary Marlowe Sommer, the judge looked her in the eye and said, you and you alone are responsible for turning a safe weapon into a deadly weapon. There was real emotion coming from the bench on that sentencing, and the trial, you know, not to get into the weeds too much here, but the case against Alec Baldwin was thrown out because of something that came to light after Hannah's trial that the defense knew all about. I mean, this was a guy, this Troy Teske guy was a defense witness. They decided not to call him, and this, you know, he was former law enforcement, so he didn't want to bring these rounds back with him to Arizona, drops them off at the sheriff's department, and that's how we got to Alec Baldwin's case.
And the prosecution not taking them, testing them, not handing them over to the defense in the Alec Baldwin case, and that's what ended in the dismissal. But you can
but
feel
it really had nothing to do with Halyna Gutierrez, right? I mean, they knew about the rounds. They knew about they're the ones that brought Teske in. They decided not to use them.
And there were additional things that Jason Bowles, the attorney for Halyna Gutierrez, brought up. There were some interviews. There was, I believe, the third Seth Kenney interview that they didn't have. That even on this this hearing that they held, Carrie Morrissey admitted, yes, we did not turn that over. We should have. There was something that it was a mistake, an honest mistake. So apparently the judge didn't feel that it was to the level that it was in the Alec Baldwin case, where something didn't get turned over in time for trial. Still
with us, Tad Thomas, trial attorney in Kentucky. Tad, this was expected by some, but you never know. The momentum after the Baldwin debacle could have carried into Halyna Gutierrez's case, but didn't. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, it's you're entitled to a fair trial. To have a fair trial, you're entitled to have all of the information that the prosecution is going to level against you, and all exculpatory information that may be out there that is in the hands of the prosecution. You know, what the court has said here is this was a fair trial. He had all this information. Her attorneys had all this information. They chose not to take the same direction that Alec Baldwin's attorneys took. And it doesn't make a difference in her case because the prosecution of her as the armorer is very different than the prosecution of Alec Baldwin. As the judge said, and you adequately point out, you know, she was the one that was responsible to make sure that this was not a live round weapon. It doesn't matter what all these, you know, extracurricular things are that are going on. This was on her, and, you know, she dropped the ball.
So the next step will be for her attorneys to file an appeal in this case. They had to cross this hurdle. You have to get the trial judge to say, no, you can't have a new trial. But they also wanted her to be released pending her appeal. Do you think it's possible that the appeals court will allow that? Because she's got this short sentence. It could take a long time for the appeals court to even figure out what they want to do with this case.
It's possible, but once it gets to the Court of Appeals, first of all, it's a very unique remedy that she would be released pending appeal by the Court of Appeals. They're going to look at it, and if they don't see some palpable, on-the-face error by the trial court judge, they're probably going to leave it alone. Most appellate courts defer to the trial court unless there's just something obvious that stands out there. The fact that this is only an 18-month sentence, that certainly leans to her favor, but it's going to be very unusual, and I'd be really surprised if the Court of Appeals lets her out pending appeal in this case.
The Alec Baldwin case seemed to have gone away, but Carrie Morrissey, the special prosecutor, has petitioned the judge to reconsider her decision on dismissing the charges against Alec Baldwin with prejudice. That, to Julia's point, is also a step to go to the next level, because there's no way she's going to have a change of heart at the trial level. But are you surprised that the special prosecutor Morrissey just let this thing go in terms of the Alec Baldwin side of the equation? Because there did clearly seem to be a misstep in the handling of the evidence.
You know, one of your other guests that I've seen on, I can't remember her name now, that was worked on this case at one point, you know, said it pretty clearly when she talked about this prosecutor's personality and how she goes about handling her cases. And so it doesn't surprise me, given that inside information about this prosecutor's personality, that she absolutely wants his conviction. She's going to do anything that she can to get it. And, you know, Katie barred the door on all process procedure. So, no, it doesn't surprise me that this is the tactic she's taking. However, I don't know that the results are going to be very good for her here.
Yeah, Linda Johnson is who you're referring to. She is. She was the co-counsel for that. We just recently interviewed her last week for an upcoming victim to verdict a week from Sunday on this case, and boy, she had some very interesting things to say. In fact, she said that once the live rounds were pulled out of the bag by the judge, she had the uh-oh feeling, and as she said, she just felt disgusted and went to the bathroom and was basically pacing back and forth, wondering what should she do. Should she resign? And the way she tells the story, it's incredible what she went through. Ended up writing on a Post-it note to Carrie Morrissey, I'm resigning, because they had reconvened before she, you know, by the time she got out of the bathroom, they had reconvened. Now she's in the courtroom. She writes on a Post-it note.
And you were inside the courtroom, right?
Yes,
during that time, we were all watching along and not knowing what was going on. And it seemed like the reports were that she had resigned, but it was while the hearing was going on in front of the judge.
Yeah.
So it was
She
really...
ends up walking out. She left her bag and her computer. A bailiff had to come and get it. It was high drama.
And unusual. The entire situation was unusual, almost at every level, Tad. Just the charges, because we hadn't seen an actor of Alec Baldwin's caliber being charged for something like this. It was already an unfortunate situation, the death of Halyna Hutchins. But who pays for it if the special prosecutor wants to keep appealing higher and higher on this case? Who makes the decision? Because she's not technically with an office that would have ranks of people who she would have to go through as a special prosecutor, correct?
Yeah, it's, you know, whoever appointed her is going to have the ultimate decision as to whether or not this continues and what money she can spend. And so she could be cut off. But, you know, just with what you were saying with Linda, you know, kudos to her. We're often put in situations as trial lawyers in the heat of battle when things come up, and not only do you have to consider what is in the best interest of your client, but what is ethical and what you can and can't do. And so for her to take that move in the middle of trial, and when that's going on, that is a hard decision on her part. So kudos to her for doing the right thing, the thing that she believed was the ethical thing in front of that court at that time. That's a hard call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can hear her tell that story on Victim to Verdict next a week from Sunday.
Sundays.
8 o'clock Eastern. Let's get a break in here. Again, the breaking news, no is the answer to Hannah Gutierrez's motion for a new trial. The judge in that case denied that motion, so she will continue to serve her sentence, at least for now.